Civil, thoughtful and friendly. These are not words used lately to describe Donald Trump, but it's what Prime Minister Bill English had to say about the newly elected president yesterday. The two leaders spoke for 15 minutes. It was the first exchange since Mr Trump took office just over 2 weeks ago. And Bill English, the Prime Minister, is in our Wellington studio. You can also watch this interview live on Facebook. Good morning.
Good morning.
The White House said that you discussed challenges to regional peace and security. So what's top of the list for you and the President there?
Well, look, there was the whole business of border security as it relates to, in their case, the immigration policy that's being much discussed and contested in the US. So we talked a bit about the job of making sure that people who are real high risk to the security of your citizens don't get across your border. The US has something of a view that none of those pressures exist in New Zealand, but actually they do, and we have a system to achieve that. But also in terms of a common interest in the region, we had some discussion about China and North Korea.
OK, let's come on to China shortly, but on that travel ban, what exactly did you say to the President, and what sort of terms did you convey what you wanted to tell him?
Well, as I said yesterday, I said to him what I've said publicly, and that is that New Zealand disagrees with the policy and wouldn't implement it. I think he's a man who's familiar with disagreement, and that led on to a discussion about border security.
How robust was that discussion about the travel ban?
Well, it was a sensible, polite discussion about the pressures that are on the borders of most countries these days and how we go about it. So I was able to describe a bit about how it works here, but I couldn't describe for you exactly the words because actually I don't remember exactly the words.
Okay, how forceful were those words? Was it, for example, as strongly as you talked about it last week on Morning Report?
Well, as I said, I just used the same description of our point of view as I've made publicly. This is a discussion with the leader of another country. I'm not there to scold him, although a lot of people might like us to do that. We want to get our points across, build a relationship, ensure that when opportunities arise, I can continue to communicate openly with the President.
Now, on that refugee deal with Australia, which is causing some consternation, if it falls through, is the New Zealand offer to take some of those refugees, as John Key mentioned a few months back, is that still on the table?
Well, look, there hasn't been any discussion about that, either internally or with the Australian government.
But from your perspective, would you want to honour that?
Well, look, because we haven't discussed it. I wouldn't want to, take a position without understanding exactly where they're up to, because there seems to be, it does look likely the US and Australia still have an arrangement in place that hasn't actually altered. So until it's clear what's going on there, I wouldn't want to comment on it further.
Now, you mentioned China and North Korea. The White House readout on the call also talking about the President affirming, quote, strong and active engagement in Asia. What commitment has been secured there?
Oh, look, I haven't secured any particular commitment over and above what the statement that's been made there.
But what does that mean, strong and active engagement in Asia?
Well, you'd need to talk to the US about what exactly they mean.
What is your understanding of it, Mr.
Well,
English?
look, I put the case that it's important for New Zealand and important for the region that the US maintains its presence and its interest in the Asia Pacific, because there has been concern, in fact, some real concern, that in pulling out of the TPP may signal some ongoing withdrawal of US interest. We don't want to see that happen, and I, in general terms, put that to the President.
Did you raise any rising tension which appears to be going on between the US and China? Is that something you expressed any unease about?
Oh, we had a discussion, and there was nothing in that discussion that didn't reflect the public statements really made in the US. There's clearly the US President has some views about China, particularly over trade. Over the South China Sea, and there will be an ongoing discussion.
Is that something you're a little bit uncomfortable with, though?
Well, look, you've got two strong countries, strong leadership in both cases. They've got some differences of view. Certainly, it's our hope that those differences of view will continue to be dealt with and resolved within the usual diplomatic channels, and that seems to be the signals that are coming from the US administration, and there was nothing I heard from the President yesterday that gave me any more cause for concern.
What was the mention about North Korea?
Oh, just the President discussing the fact that it's pretty important, and that countries work together to ensure that North Korea don't cause a lot of trouble.
Is that something that you think is particularly on his horizon?
Oh, look, I think it is. I think that's been clear from the administration for a while. I think it's on the horizon of every country in the region, just because North Korea are unpredictable and have some bit more capability than everyone's comfortable with.
You could say the same about President Trump.
Well, lots of people say lots of things about the president. We have a long-standing relationship with the US, and part of my task as Prime Minister is to ensure that relationship's in good shape. And just from a first call yesterday, a first discussion, it is.
Okay. Did you expect to speak about climate change? That was something that Paula Bennett raised as something that was likely to be on the agenda.
Well, I didn't expect to be speaking about anything in particular, because it's a personal conversation that goes where it goes. And we had some issues we wanted to make sure we brought to his attention. So no, we didn't discuss climate change. There's been a lot of speculation about what may be the position of the US on climate change. Yet to see what actually happens. 15
minutes doesn't seem like a very long conversation. Is that the amount of time that it was scheduled to be?
Well, certainly we allowed sufficient time for 15 or 20 minutes because we're on the way between Waitangi Day engagements, and you can't hold them up.
Did you basically not have enough time to speak to him yesterday?
No, that's not the case, but certainly in my mind I thought that the conversation might be 10 minutes or so. I mean, this is a person who talks pretty directly, and so he doesn't spend a lot of time on the sort of diplomatic blandishments, so you can cover a lot of ground quickly.
Did he introduce all the topics for discussion, or did you get to raise anything in particular that you wanted to?
I don't know, who would know, half and half. Certainly I raised some issues.
But I mean, I'm interested with the climate change, that clearly was something on the mind of the Deputy Prime Minister, but yet it's not something that actually made it into the call.
Well, the first conversation, I wouldn't expect to cover everything in the call. And as I said, it's yet to be seen. We do know what their position is, for instance, on immigration, which has had an impact on, potentially had an impact on New Zealand citizens. Climate change is an issue which I'm sure will be discussed in the future.
You've been praised by some for not upsetting President Trump in this 15-minute call. Was it a call of appeasement?
No, and I think that the expectation that somehow there was, he would react to us having a difference of opinion, I think was probably wrong. I found the discussion was a civil, polite discussion.
When might you talk again?
Well, I think that's yet to be seen. It will depend. It will depend on interest. I think he's someone who you would talk to when there's something, a gap to be closed, an arrangement to be made, not just to pass the time of day.
Or indeed, you could swing by the White House. Thank you very much for your time, Bill English, the Prime Minister.